when my plane touched down about a week ago at Reagan National, and I got here for the first time as a member-elect for freshman orientation, I was just really moved. It finally hit me when the wheels of the plane touched down, and I burst into tears into my poor wet mask. You have to wear your mask while you're traveling. And I'm just enormously humbled and grateful. This is the honor of my lifetime. And I'm trying to learn as much as I can as a freshman. We have our orientation. I haven't missed a single class. I'm making sure that I am present and I'm listening. I have two ears and one mouth. I want to make sure that we have continuity in the office as we transition, and Congressman Cunningham's office has been tremendously helpful in the transition process, and I'm grateful for that. I want to make sure that all the constituents that are being served continue to be served without any gaps or pauses or hiccups along the way. I want to make sure I assemble the right team for the right job, and that we're here to serve everybody across the Lowcountry, regardless of their political affiliation.
What's that been like? I mean, there are a lot of different new freshman Congress people in there, especially Republican women, among other people. But what has that atmosphere been like for all of you walking into the congressional office?
It's very exciting to be a part of this. And this is really a historic freshman class. In the Republican conference, we've doubled our number of women with this class, freshman class alone. And, you know, a lot of the seats that were flipped by women or minorities or combat veterans. It's a very diverse and inclusive group of people, and it's just a tremendous honor to be a part of history and to watch all of these men and women making history alongside of us. And I'm building relationships with people across both sides of the aisle, trying to make sure that we build these relationships early. It's going to be tough as a freshman to get anything done, but I want to make sure that we have the best opportunity to get things done.
How about that? You've stressed that, how important that's going to be across the aisle. With the atmosphere right now, with the situation with the president and the votes and everything else that are going on, how difficult is that going to be to reach across the aisle, or is there a sense that there really can be some bipartisanship?
Personally, for me, it will not be difficult for me personally to do that. It's something I've done as a state lawmaker, but really that's incumbent upon us as leaders and elected officials to make sure that we do that. And when I look at what's happening across the country right now, and in particular, you look at our district, we're very reflective of what happened across the country this year, but we had between 70 and 75% turnout of voters on not just one, but both sides of the aisle. And I believe it wasn't a referendum on one side or the other. It was a referendum on us as a nation to ensure that we do work together going forward. If we were that divided and everything is almost 50-50 across the board, and turnout and these districts that are so close and the ones that flipped, you know, from Democrat to Republican, it is incumbent upon us to do the job we were elected to do. And that means we are going to have to work together. I believe that's what this election year showed.
We want to talk more about you. What is the thing maybe that surprised you, or is there anything that surprised you or been different about walking in and what you've learned already that maybe you didn't know, or the atmosphere or anything of the sort?
Well, it's freezing up here. They don't have low country weather, and it's very difficult, if not impossible, to bring the low country sunshine up here. So I'm going to have to buy some boots, some very warm boots to walk around up here. The thing that I learned that is surprising, and it is pretty organized. Freshman orientation is much more organized than I thought it would be. As a state lawmaker, having 3 years of experience in the state legislature, it's a much smaller scale, but it's not atypical or different from what I'm walking into now. It's at a larger scale, and I'm really excited about the opportunity to have the staff to do everything I've wanted to do. As a state lawmaker, you have very few resources, and in some cases, part-time staff only, one person part-time that you share with 3 or 4 other members. And this is different. We have our own staff and our own staff budget. And so having the ability to hire the right people for our team, and we held all of Congressman Cunningham's constituent services staff over, so we have that continuity, but also making sure that we hire the right people for the right job and we're ready to go on day one. And I'm deeply humbled by the opportunity to serve the Lowcountry, a place where I grew up, I call home, and has given me so much opportunity.
I mean, Congressman Cunningham was able to sort of set groundwork to get some things done. How much is that going to help you too, even different parties, but same general ideas to what they're going on?
It's harder when you're in the minority party, but in 2 years from now, I do believe the Republicans are going to have the majority. I'm very much interested in finding ways that we can work in a nonpartisan way, and I'm already laying the groundwork to do that. When you are in the minority, sometimes you get blacklisted or blackballed. And I've heard some of those stories. I heard that would happen to me. And so the environment is different when you're in the minority than versus being in the majority. Unfortunately, that's the way politics is. That shouldn't be the way government works. But I can understand when you're campaigning, but not when you're elected to office. But unfortunately, that's the way things are in DC. And it's going to take people thinking outside of the box and members willing to work together to cross that threshold and do it differently.
Is there a different atmosphere up there? Is there an atmosphere of anger or divisiveness that you feel, or are you trying to step away from that?
Yeah, I want to avoid all of that if there is. I haven't seen it if there is. And, some people have a different kind of Twitter accounts than I do. I've now been elected. I am the member-elect, and I represent everybody. When you're in campaign mode, you're in campaign mode. That is a partisan effort. But when you are an elected office or now a member-elect, it is a nonpartisan role in terms of serving our constituents. So I have switched out of campaign mode and I'm into service mode. Now, when I get to my reelection and I start campaigning, that'll be different. But right now, it's all about how can I best serve the residents of the Lowcountry.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask, but what is your feeling about the debate out there? Obviously, South Carolina has been avoiding all this. The votes have been counted. We're all good. You're in, no problems. But with the president and the issues there across the country, his tweets, the anger sort of on all sides about this right now.
Right. And, South Carolina is a beacon in so many ways. And I really wish other states could follow our lead. And that is on how to reopen your economy during COVID, how to keep people safe during COVID, but also in the electoral process. So it's up to the states to determine how they elect their officials at the federal, state, and local level. Some of the things I have seen where it appears some states are trying to change the rules of the game right in the middle of the game. That is disturbing. I do believe the president has the right and the legal ability to legally exhaust avenues where he can to make sure that all legal votes are counted. If they're illegally cast, they get discounted or discarded. It's really important, regardless of what political party you are. The American voting system is only as good as people's confidence in it. And if we find out, whether it's now or it's later, that there is evidence of voting irregularities, it's going to be incumbent upon us to fix it before the next election, 2 years from now, 4 years from now, because it doesn't matter what your party affiliation is. People shouldn't feel that voting is a partisan effort or that vote counting is partisan. Both parties should have the opportunity and the right to observe closely, in close proximity, to vote counting or recounting, voting, opening up of absentee ballots and how they're counted. I mean, both sides should have an equal opportunity to observe that. I think there are some nonpartisan measures that we can take in the future, or at least give guidance and guidelines. And I have been talking about South Carolina's electoral process. We have done a great job of ensuring that every vote is counted and people have confidence in the process. And I think everyone in South Carolina agrees, but where we're seeing that in other states, people are not as confident. And we need to ensure that voters know that there is integrity to the electoral process and they should have confidence in the outcome.
Is there any fear that some of these issues and this infighting and everything else takes away from that confidence in what you're trying to do and serve as a legislator in all the legislatures?
Well, I think so. I mean, division, we've allowed our disagreements to cause great division, which is why it's so important right now that all legal avenues are exhausted. If there is evidence that should come forward, we should all be able to know what that is, but also to ensure both sides feel like it was a competent election and that there was integrity in the process. And that is the basis of the foundation of our country, is our right to vote. That is what we have in order to ensure that our values are represented in every elected official, the federal, state, and local level. It is extremely important that we get it right. And even if it takes a little extra time, if there's confidence in the process, people will be confident in the outcome. And hopefully we can, after this is done, that we can move forward in a less divisive manner.
Are you of the belief that the results that have been posted so far are the results that should be there, or are you of the belief that the President Trump is actually correct with what he's saying?
Well, the results are certified. That's it. I mean, that's done. That process has been exhausted. So, and I'm not sure which states have certified their results or not. I've been I have not missed a single freshman orientation class, and we're working like 12 to 14 hours a day. And then on top of that, we're hiring and interviewing. I just came out of an interview for a staff member up here. And so I am really focused on that process. And then on top of it, we also are jockeying for committee assignments. So we're having very much 15-hour days right now while we're up here.
You've talked about that. Do you have now the sense, since you've been in there, I know you're not even in office yet, but that first thing that you would like to take care of, that you would like to do once you were in office, beyond the I want to help the Low Country, is there anything specific to that yet?
Yeah, no, I have so much. When I was a state lawmaker, I probably had 24 bills that I filed. And I will not be very different from in Congress. I'll probably be very similar. Obviously, jobs and the economy is number one. Healthcare is number two. Infrastructure, conservation, all of these are things that I want to work on. And then outside of that, I am also passionate on criminal justice reform and prison reform. Those are things that I've worked on. Women's issues. I mean, I've worked on a gamut of issues as a state lawmaker, and I would like to be able to continue that work in my freshman year.
You're talking about a COVID bill, I would assume, too, to try to get that done for people who are running out of unemployment, I guess, at the end of the year.
Yeah, a stimulus package for small businesses. But the biggest thing right now, and if again, we look at South Carolina as a beacon of hope in the outcomes during this pandemic, we've been able to lower our unemployment rate to 5%, and it might actually be lower than that today, which is 3.5 points lower than the national average. We've been able to keep people healthy and safe and get them back to work. And in fact, we have so many employers looking to hire employees right now. We have a lot of job opportunities. And so we've got to make sure, number one, that we don't incentivize unemployment, and that South Carolina really be looked at as an example of what you can do and how you can be successful. And we've got to ensure that any stimulus package that comes down doesn't include anything that is totally not germane to supporting small businesses and people that have overwhelming needs directly. What you sometimes see in the political process, which is why there is gridlock, is that one side or the other, and this is Republican and Democrats' fault. I mean, they both sides do it, but that they will insert language into a bill that everybody wants that literally has nothing to do with the rest of it. And that's where we get hung up. And so I'm a big fan of very clean, very simple, direct bills, but DC is another whole nother monster.